The average person spends about 4.5 hours a day on his phone. This is about 60 days a year. But wait, it actually gets worse. If you live up to 90 years old and you started using your cell phone at the age of 10, then by the end of your life, you would have spent 13 years just looking at your phone. Just think about that for a moment. You have spent 13 years of your life looking at pixels on a screen. Not learning, not doing anything productive, not working towards achieving your goals. No, none of that. I too was someone who was wasting his life one doom scroll at a time. In this video, I am going to show you how I was able to get my screen time to just 30 minutes a day and how all this extra free time that I got completely flipped my life around. I went from someone who failed multiple subjects in high school and had shitty mental health to someone who was now working as a software engineer at Fortune 500 companies like Dell Technologies, AMD, Synopsys. Additionally, I became one of the top performing students in my bachelor's and my master's program. I accomplished all of these things while reading books, lifting weights, and training martial arts 6 days a week. All of this was possible due to the extra time that I finally got back from my phone addiction. Now, these protocols that I'm about to discuss with you, they are not quick fixes. So if you're looking for just a quick fix to your phone addiction, then this is not the video for you. These protocols require you to make some lifestyle changes, but believe me, they're worth it. So let's get right into it. One of the first things that I used to do as soon as I woke up, like I was still in my bed, was I used to immediately check my notifications. And once that happened, it was game over. I would end up doom scrolling for about 10 to 20 minutes straight. And from that point onwards, I used to check my notifications every 10 minutes. Like literally, if I had any moment of free time throughout my day, I would immediately check my notifications. And it's not like people were texting me or I was like some popular kid at school or uni. No, none of that. I knew no one had contacted me, but I would just, it's like my body needed it. I just had to check my notifications and scroll for a while. And it's only now that I learned that the reason why I wanted to check my notifications and scroll for a while was because when you scroll or check notifications, your brain releases a neurochemical called dopamine. This thing called dopamine is associated with feeling happy, you feeling pleasured, you feeling motivated. And once you keep getting dopamine from scrolling and checking your notifications, you sort of get addicted to that feeling and your body craves it. That is why like any moment of free time I had, my body was just itching to get some dopamine. The worst part about this is that your phone is literally like this packet of drug that is constantly in your pocket. For example, if someone was addicted to crystal meth or cocaine, firstly, he would have like a really hard time getting that drug because it's, I think, not that commonly available, at least where I'm from. And also there's a lot of social stigma against these drugs. Like if you found out someone was a cocaine addict or meth addict, you would probably not hang out with them. That guy would be like outed from society. However, none of these barriers exist when it comes to a phone addiction. That phone is constantly in your pocket 24/7. No one is there to tell you, hey, stop using your phone, it's bad, you're going to be outcasted. There's no social stigma against it. So this makes dealing with phone addictions a bit more tricky because of the lack of natural barriers towards it. I read this book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and this book is all about how to set long-term powerful habits and how to even break bad ones. And in that book, he stated one thing that stuck with me. It was that every single thing that you do, every single activity that you perform throughout the day has something called an activation energy associated with it. Like this is the amount of energy you require just to begin that activity. So if the activation energy for an activity is very high, that means it's like very, very demanding to start that activity, then you're most likely not going to do that activity. And if the activation energy for that activity is very low, then you're much more likely to perform that activity. For example, all of us can easily brush our teeth. Like as soon as we wake up, we don't even have to think about it. That's because the activation energy for brushing our teeth is very, very low. It comes natural to us now at this point. And this principle makes a lot of sense to me because we humans are basically creatures of least resistance, right? We see a path of least resistance and then we are much more likely to follow that particular path. But if you see a path which has a lot of resistance, a lot of hoops, a lot of hurdles, we are probably less likely to follow that path. So using this philosophy, what I then did was I tried to make this behavior of checking my phone as difficult to perform as possible, like artificially start putting barriers between it. So the first thing that I did was I removed all of my social media apps, uninstalled them, cold turkey, signed out of all my accounts. So this way, each time I wanted to actually check my phone or scroll, I realized that there were no applications. I had to actually download the application from the Play Store, then sign in. And to be honest, this barrier was big enough that I actually dropped checking my phone by 30 to 40% just by doing this one step. Another key thing that I did was that I used to put my phone on flight mode for like long periods of the day. Anytime I was doing something, I used to immediately just put my phone on flight mode. because I'm not going to check my notification anyways. Neither do I want to be tempted by a buzzing sound or a notification popping in and that is tempting me to check my phone. If I was studying, if I was reading, if I was working out, I used to like voluntarily put my phone on flight mode. So this way I had like absolutely no incentive to check my phone. Like I was 100% positive that I would not have received a notification because my phone is on flight mode. What I found by doing this was that I was now able to have 100% focus on the activity that I was doing, and I almost felt like I was in this flow state where I was just completely focused on the activity and time was passing quicker and I was feeling really great about myself and productive, and something that I had not felt when I used to constantly check my phone. It's like it used to break me out of that experience and it used to like fragment my life. It wasn't a very fulfilling life. I would now just batch my phone use in 2 slots. One slot used to be sometime late in the morning. That is when I used to check my notification, reply to all my text, emails, check my DMs, etc., etc. And the other session used to be somewhere later in the afternoon. And that used to be the last session. After that, I wouldn't check my phone. Nope. You can't access me. I would restrict both of these sessions to about 5 to 10 minutes a day. The thing is that I wanted to uninstall these apps and I wanted to put my phone on flight mode for a long time, but there was always this fear of missing out. What if someone had to contact me and there was an emergency? And what if there's some cool social media trend that is going on? I would miss out on that. What is my favorite celebrity up to? What if this cute high school crush from 10 years ago wants to text me? There were all these thoughts in my head that never really let me commit to these protocols. Now that I've been adhering to these protocols for about 2 years, I can tell you that I did not miss anything. There was never an emergency that required my immediate attention, and if I didn't respond within that minute, my world would end. That emergency never came. Neither did that girl from high school who had a crush on texted me. Nor did I really miss social media. After around week 2, I was just oblivious to it. To me, it was just something that I was never a part of to begin with. If you are someone who enjoys information-based content rather than just pointless entertainment, then make sure that you click on the subscribe button because I'm going to be making a lot more of these. The next protocol that I'm going to talk about is absolutely crucial. Trust me, without this, you're going to have a painful experience trying to quit your phone addiction. I realized that when I stopped looking at my phone this often, my life kind of felt a bit empty. Like I was previously using my phone for 4+ hours and all of a sudden I was no longer using my phone. I had these 4 extra hours throughout my day, this void in my life. And during this time I would find myself getting bored. And once I found myself getting bored, I was much more tempted to check my phone to fill the boredom up. What I then did was fill my time with productive activities. As soon as I noticed that, okay, I had a free block of time, I would do something productive like work on my business. At one point I was working on my business for 4 hours a day. I was reading books, I was working out, I was watching podcasts. Every single hour of my day was accounted for. Now something really cool started happening. I started enjoying doing these activities. Like I actually felt pleasure when I used to finish performing these activities because I used to feel like, okay, I'm heading somewhere. I'm not wasting my time. I'm being productive. And there's research behind this. Like anytime you tick something off your to-do list, your brain actually releases dopamine, that pleasure chemical. So now I had replaced that instant gratification of phone addiction with delayed gratification of productive activities. And this way I felt full, like I was happy, I was satiated, and I no longer was tempted to check my phone. Like the best way to describe this would be through this analogy. Like imagine someone puts 3 burgers and a shake in front of you. Now in scenario 1, you haven't eaten anything for 3 days. Think about how you're going to feel about that shake and that burger. You're probably going to be very tempted to eat that burger and that shake. But in scenario 2, you have just had a large healthy meal. You're like full up to your throat. You're not going to be that tempted to grab that burger and that shake now. You're probably going to throw up if you did. And that is exactly how you feel when you don't do productive activities versus when you actually do productive activities and you're satiated, you're full of dopamine and you're full of pleasure already. You don't seek instant pleasure anymore. The next protocol that I use to quit my phone addiction is something so simple, yet this is ignored by 95% of the people. You know, back when I was constantly checking my phone for notifications and scrolling, I realized that I was just so used to being hyper-stimulated. My mind could not tolerate boredom. Like it had to immediately jump towards something stimulating as soon as I was bored. And this is why when I was like away from my phone for even 5 minutes, I would get this itch to check my phone for the 100th time. So I thought to myself that if I have now rewired my brain to be so addicted to stimulation because of years and years of scrolling, perhaps there's a way that I could train my brain to not be so hooked to stimulation, and this is when I started meditating. So I would start meditating twice each day, one in the morning and one later in the afternoon. What I would do is that I would sit in a comfortable position, right? I would close my eyes and then I would either focus on my breath or I would just visualize complete darkness in my mind. Initially, I thought that when you are meditating, you are not supposed to have any thoughts, but then I quickly learned that thoughts are not in your control. They're just going to come at random to you. But what you can do is recognize when you find yourself falling in the rabbit hole of a thought and branching into other thoughts. As soon as you figure out that, oh, I have lost focus from my breath or from that visual darkness, and I've actually started thinking about something, some thought, some argument that I had 3 years ago. As soon as that happens, bring yourself back to that point to focus and continue. And you're going to realize that when you first start meditating, you're going to have a bunch of these thoughts that you fall into and they take your attention away from the point of focus. What you need to do is recognize, okay, yep, I lost focus, bring yourself back. That is the art of meditation. Now, the first few times you're going to do it, you're going to have a bunch of thoughts. Like I had like 10 thoughts in a minute. And also I got extremely bored. But the longer you do it, the more frequently you do it, you realize that you are not going to have as many thoughts. It's going to be far easier for you to be just maintaining that focus without just falling into the rabbit hole of some thought. Also, you're going to realize that you are not going to be as bored while meditating. Like there are times I've gone for like 10 minutes and I haven't felt bored. But when I first started, in 3 minutes, I was just bored out of my mind. What I noticed was just meditating twice a day for 5 minutes for just like about 2 to 3 weeks. I was no longer impulsively jumping towards my phone. I was okay with not being hyper-stimulated all the time. I didn't need my phone. And also my ability to be aware of my own behaviors, like, whoa, I used to recognize when I was like jumping towards my phone and I could like stop myself. No, that is not what we want. Like meditation somewhat makes you a lot more mindful of your own behaviors. And this is how, using these 3 protocols, I was able to end my phone addiction.